You don't want your ministers to spend too much time together, especially not if they're related to the security forces in some way. So if you see the Minister of the Interior with your big general going golfing or something, that's not the type of thing you want. Yeah. So instead of having a unified military under the command of one general, what you want to have as a dictator is you have your regular military, then you have a parallel military force, and then maybe you also have a militarized palace guard. And the reason why you want to do this is because you want to signal to your generals that they couldn't just depose you one day if they decide that they would rather be in charge.
And have any dictators done this very effectively?
Yeah, extremely effectively. I mean, perhaps the latest example of something like this would be Vladimir Putin. So, listeners may remember what happened when Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, instead of marching on Ukraine, decided to go the other way towards Moscow. Right? So this is an example where Vladimir Putin was worried about his own military. So he structured it in a way that he would have a counterweight against the regular forces, which in this case was Wagner. So mercenaries. And that worked for a while, but then eventually the monster that he had created almost came back to bite him and depose him from power because Prigozhin decided that, Moscow should be the destination and not Kiev. But sometimes it then became apparent to them that they had gone almost too far in coup-proofing because the external threat became bigger. So one of the examples that I go through in the book is the example of Saddam Hussein. So Saddam Hussein was infamous for this, and not just with the military, but also with the intelligence services. So, Iraq was about to go to war against Iran. So Iran was a massive problem. And even though everybody in Baghdad knew that Iran was a massive problem, even at that point when tensions were, boiling, Saddam Hussein was still more worried about his own military than the Iranian military. So instead of using his intelligence services to spy on the Iranians, almost everybody in the entire Iraqi intelligence service was occupied with either spying on ordinary Iraqis or the Iraqi military. Three Iraqi intelligence officers were tasked with spying on Iran, which was Iraq's biggest external threat. Right. And he didn't just do that. I mean, he promoted for loyalty. He had the whole coup-proofing going on. He would even decide how wide individual trenches were supposed to be. But then eventually what happened was that the Iranians gained the upper hand. So partly because of all this micromanaging and all this coup-proofing going on, the Iranians were pushing and pushing and pushing. And Saddam Hussein realized that, okay, wait a minute. Actually, the Iranian soldiers are perhaps a bigger issue than the Iraqi soldiers. Right. So I'm going to dial it back on some of the coup-proofing. I'm going to try to listen to my generals a bit more because they are the actual professionals. And in the end, that was enough to save him. But once again, you can only really turn it up or turn it down, but the problem is going to be somewhere. You're always going to be at risk.